Shera, you outdid yourself again. Man, I love that blazer. Where do you get your outfits?
I can't give away all my secrets.
That is so
Thank
original.
you. Thank you.
Teaching a class about a couple weeks ago, and there was a guy sitting right in the front of the class while I was teaching, and he was just doing this crossword puzzle, very engrossed in this crossword puzzle, right in front of me, and I'm teaching a very important perspective at the time, and he was so distracted. It wasn't like he was in the back of the room. I'm behind people. He's 8 feet in front of me working this crossword puzzle as I'm trying to teach. And I said, why don't you take the crossword puzzle if you don't want to be here and go out and do it outside?
Yeah.
This guy blasted me with an FU. He stands up and said, oh, Mr. Everything, Mr. Articulate. I put my hands up and he walked out, and he kept going. I tried to regain control of the class, but it was difficult because he put up such a spectacle. And even after I said, maybe a little unprofessional, I said, just keep walking. And he kept walking, but we could even hear him out of earshot. He kept going.
He was one of those.
And I have to be honest with you, I felt so, first of all, astonished at the lack of respect. I mean, to drop the F-bomb on me, I didn't chastise him, I didn't order him. I simply said, hey, if you want to do the crossword puzzle, why don't you go outside?
I had one class left, which is like 3 credits, and it's just, I started doing substitute teaching, and you need to get the degree at the same time, and I remember I had the most unruly kids, and there's really no one way to handle it. Everyone has their thing, but I was young, and I would go toe to toe with them. So if I had a kid who was like this kid in your class, I probably would have said something too, something along the lines of, we'll wait until you're done coloring or done doing your puzzle. We're just going to sit here and waste the school time, and we're going to wait for you. And then maybe the whole class would look to him, and it would be a little bit embarrassing. And the point is not to embarrass the kid, it's to bring attention that we're all waiting for you to pay attention. But in doing that, multiple times, I was called to the principal's office, and he was very nice, and he told me, he goes, I know that you're trying to reach these kids and you're trying to get them to understand you and really be a part of the lesson, but when you're doing that, you're giving this unnecessary attention to this kid, and now because all eyes are on him, now he becomes boisterous and he's big man on campus, and now all the other kids who are really paying attention, they're lost because they're watching you and this child have this exchange, and it's more interesting than the lesson. Then at the very end, after you've had this exchange, now you got to try to wrap the class back up and get their attention again, and it's gone. So the advice was to ignore that child. As unfortunate as that sounds, you can't stop the entire class to then attend to one child. You have 25 kids in your class. I mean, why is this kid so much more important than the other ones that you have to stop the entire lesson to address him? Let him color, let him do the crossword puzzle, and guess what? Some kids, I've learned over time, that's how they learn. They may not be attentive, listening, like listening to you and looking in your face, but they can hear you. And maybe they're doodling because that's how they process the information. So I guess maybe even in my time, years ago, how the teacher knows that you're paying attention is if you look them in the eye, is if you're raising your hands, if you're participating. But now, it's not like that anymore. And my advice, which I've got from substitute teaching, would be that is to not give so much attention to that child who's not paying attention, and focus on the ones who are. That's really the best thing I can tell you, because respect nowadays, it's a touchy subject. It's a very, very, very touchy subject.
I guess I played that one wrong, and that makes better sense. I played it wrong. That makes better sense, just to ignore him. But the astonishing thing, and I come from a different generation, was the lack of respect. Yeah. For him to stand up and blast me like that, I'm not used to that. And you know, some of your listeners may be in my age bracket or near there, or in that time frame, and you may remember when I was in school, Shera, the biggest, toughest kid, football player, he never smarted off to the little English teacher. No. You just didn't do that because you knew you'd get called down to the principal's office, your parents would be called, and your mom and dad would be furious. You'd be taken out of school, and everybody in the school knew it, and you were in trouble with the principal. That doesn't seem to bother anybody anymore.
Well, you know, as you're saying that, what I'm thinking about is in that you know, even in my time frame, and I'm 33. In that frame going back, there was a thing that we used to all say, like, the village raises the child. So, you know, maybe that's why the football player didn't mouth off, because that teacher knew his mom. And, you know, maybe if he's walking down the street and he sees, you know, the owner of the grocery store owner knows his mom. And so the neighborhood is helping to raise that child, because everywhere that child goes, he knows that there's someone who knows his parents, who has been given sort of like permission to reprimand him if he does something wrong, or to tell on him, or to say, hey, you know, Mom, I saw him on the railroad tracks, or I saw him doing something he wasn't supposed to do. And I think maybe respect diminished a little bit because we lost the village raises the child kind of thing. And the real question is, where did that go? Because as teachers, you used to be able to really hone in on that child and be able to not reprimand, but give him the right things, the right tools he needs, and the parent wouldn't be upset. It wouldn't cause this ruckus. But now every little thing you do is a problem. You know, the child may be wrong, but the parent picks up for the child, or you know. So I think maybe that's where it starts. Is we lost the village raises the child thing, and I don't know where that went, but it's obsolete now. That's not a thing now.
You're right. I don't see the backing or support for the teachers. And you're right about the village raising a child. That was my era. Your neighbors knew. Mine too. And my parents would give, my mom and dad said, he gets out of line, you let me know.
Right.
You know, when we had babies, so you whack him on the side of the head if he gets out of line. And they had, so as children, we knew that, and you know, there was more, and again, times change and no one's disputing that, but there was more parental involvement. Parents were more involved.
Yeah, that's
now
true.
Parents don't even get involved. My son had an issue with school many years ago, and I took time off work. I went down to get this thing resolved between my son and another boy. They had a fight, and this guy's sitting next to this boy, and it's obvious they have no connection. And it turns out it was this boy's uncle, who the boy really didn't know, or you could see there was no chemistry, there was no anything there. And I'm saying, well, where's this boy's parents?
Yeah.
And the principal said, well, they had to work. I said, I had to work. I'm here.
And you're there.
This involved my son. This guy doesn't appear to me to even really know his nephew very well. I don't know that we're going to get anything accomplished here. And there was a shrug of the shoulders, and nothing happened. But I do see that there's not the support for the teachers. In fact, and maybe you experienced this in your early substitute teachings, but my sister used to run Boynton Seafood Market, and one of her customers was a teacher at Boynton High School, and she told my sister that if a teacher puts out a child, the same child, more than 4 times in a month, the teacher's called down to the principal's office. Well, maybe it's a disruptive child, and the teacher has to do that for the benefit of the class, but they're blaming the teacher. The teacher must have a problem with control. Well, that's the only control. If the child's that disruptive, you got to put them out of the class so you can focus on the rest of the children. If the child is that disruptive that you can't speak, or the child's acting out, what do you do for the benefit of the class? You've got to put this time out for that student or put them down on the principal. Yeah. And yet, if it happens more than 4 times in a month, the teacher is reprimanded.
I commend teachers because you guys have a heart of gold, a heart of gold.
And they take a lot of abuse, a lot of abuse. And part of that, I think you're right, where it stems from the home. And sure, I know that in today's society, there's a lot of times both parents have to work and a kid is left to his own devices. But I think, I'm going to throw this in there, part of the responsibility lies on the media and what the kids are shown, what's being televised. I'm going back many years, 20-some years, but I remember my son, when he was like 12, 11, right in that age, there was a popular show, situation comedy called Malcolm in the Middle.
Oh, yeah.
And it portrayed the parents as these buffoons, and Malcolm is the brainy one, and the parents are clowns that he has to straighten out continually, and it's supposed to be this humorous program.
Oh, he's a smart one.
Yeah,
oh.
and the father just really doesn't know what time of day it is, or what's in the bathroom drawer. He just goes to work every day and brings home the income and supports the family, but he couldn't tell you what brand of toothpaste he uses.
Yeah.
and so Malcolm, and the gist of the show is, again, the parents are put in this unfavorable caricature light where they're foolish and they're silly, and Malcolm, of course, solves the problem at the end of the day and straightens the parents out. And it's supposed to be this humorous show. Well, my son's watching this and he's thinking Malcolm is a pretty cool guy, so he thinks he's going to talk to me like that. Well, Dad, you should just, don't be stupid, Dad. Right. So at 11 years old, I said, excuse me, son. I'm not Malcolm's dad, and you're not Malcolm, okay? You don't talk to me like that.
Yeah.
You don't talk to me like that. And in retrospect, I understand he's just doing what he sees, and he thinks if this is a popular TV show that everybody watches and they talk about in school and how funny it is, well, parents I guess I could talk to my dad like that. No, you can't. No, you can't. I think kids are heavily influenced by what they witness on TV, what's popular, what isn't, who the heroes are today, what they look up to, and what's portrayed in the media and on TV is acceptable. We got to be careful with that. There's a certain responsibility because I think kids are very impressionable.
Yeah.
And we of course we can't monitor where kids go and what they do, but I remember there was a friend of my son John's, and I didn't care for this kid. He was trouble, and John thought he was a cool guy, and he was a year older than my son. But I got just a vibe off him when he came into my house, and I didn't care for him. He was just kind of a wild child, and John thought he was cool, and he's this and that. And our kids, we can't control our kids when they're out on the streets. We can only advise them and hope we can lead by example. But you're right, it starts in the home. And if parents aren't keeping an eye on what their kids are doing or who they're hanging out with, that can, they're easily influenced when they're 12, 13, and what they think is cool, or they get their friends to say, hey man, steal this, and you can be a part of us, be a part of the gang, or do this, or do that. And, one of the things I tried to tell my son, and I tried to teach my son respect was, but son, if your friends are challenging you to do something to be a part of them or to fit in, don't be an object of their amusement. Jump over that roof and we'll let you, and then you break your ankle, do you think they care?
Nope.
No, they're not your friends. No. So again, we can advise and hope we can plant that seed to sink in. But again, I really try to teach my son respect. If you don't respect yourself, others aren't going to respect you. But you got to give respect to receive it.
Yeah, that is true. What I'm getting from Malcolm in the Middle is that really wasn't a kids show. The jokes were for the adults, and somehow the kids picked up on it, and what they're mimicking is Malcolm. Because he's a kid like them, and I can be smart like that, but the jokes are really for the adults. It's for us to see a child in this grown kind of way. It's for kids. Just like when you go to a movie, like a Disney movie, they put in some things for the adults because the adults are watching the movie too. We're watching it for an hour, and we need a little bit of entertainment, but kids are going to pick up the most insane things, and then when they repeat it to you, that's when you have to say, hey, no, don't don't say that, don't laugh, and don't be a part of the disrespect. Because I've seen videos online where a kid 3 or 4 years old says a curse word or ha ha ha. It's not funny. They're 3, so when they hit 10, how are you going to control this out of because the kid is consuming all the time. You laugh. Oh, if I curse and if I,
that's right.
they're gonna laugh at me.
Right.
So now when they hit 10 and they hit these like tantrums, they want to go places that you say no to, and they start to curse at you. Now it's too late to try to reprimand.
And especially if they hear it from you.
Exactly.
If Dad says that word, well, when he's really mad, that means a lot. It scares me. Maybe I could say that word.
Yeah.
And the onus too is on comedians.
Mm-hmm.
And comedians, some of them are so foul-mouthed, and they're funny without that. But the kids watch that and say, well, he's popular, he's funny. I'll joke like that. I'll talk like that, and I'll be well liked and respected and liked too. And it may be popular, it may be shown, and it's tolerated, but profanity is profanity. Obscenity is obscenity. We still have those mores and morals in society. They've gotten a whole lot looser to the detriment of our kids. We don't want our kids really, if I had a daughter, I don't want her talking like that.
Yeah, but I'm going to disagree just a little bit, because there's adult content for a reason. And that's why we have to govern our kids.
Yes.
and really look at what they're watching and what they're consuming. Because a comedian, you can't get into his show if you're not 18 and older, depending on what comedian he is.
Right.
So that's the same thing with the show. If this comedian is 40 years old and he's dropping F-bombs and B-words and things like that, then I'm sure the audience, it's an R-rated thing. A child shouldn't be watching or sitting in that audience in the first place. But it's the parent who brings that child to the show, or who doesn't have the parental control on the TV for them to see that particular comedian. And I don't think as an adult, especially ones without children, that we should be allowed to be ourselves and not always have to what is the word I'm looking for? Sanitize ourselves. Why? If you have a child, it is up to you to make sure that you go in and do those you're a parent. So parent the child and watch what they're watching. And I know it's hard, but there are things you can do. Comcast has a parental control setting on all the TVs. You have a password. As a parent, you can do things. It's not like it's a free-for-all. You can do things. But I don't think every adult should censor everything they're doing at the sake of the child. We have to have adult content.
Sure, I agree, certainly. And that has really loosened up, because I've seen even on network TV after 10 o'clock, wow, you hear some things you wouldn't hear 10 years ago, as far as language and what the theme of the show is or what the content is. And I think some kids are they're not mature enough to really be able to assimilate.
Well, wait a minute, because what's a child's bedtime? 8 o'clock.
Right.
So by 8 o'clock,
enough, but
they should be asleep anyway.
Yeah, weekends are weekends, and kids do sleepovers, and we can't control. But as best we can, you're right. We should monitor that as best we can.
I just don't think an adult. You and I, we're adults, so we should be able to consume an adult show without the bleeps and because we're adults. We understand the content. Right. We understand the joke.
And if that's what we want to watch, that's what we'd like to watch.
Why not? Yeah. So and we have Disney Channel. We have all these specific channels and specific shows for children that they should be watching, which is also educational. So gear your children to those shows. And sometimes, as an adult, if you're watching a program and you know it's inappropriate, don't have the child sit in with you and watch this program. Because I know a few people who have children, and at 14 years old, they're watching these really adult shows with like sex scenes and things like that. And it's, he's going to learn it at school anyway. Yeah, but he shouldn't learn it. He shouldn't learn it like that.
Yeah, exactly, right.
You have to really govern that. And
Shera, I don't think it's just with kids. I think that lack of respect is across the board. I see it with adults. Yeah. I see it on the highway. I see it in a movie theater. I see just this lack of others and consideration of others. And I don't know where this began, but the F word and giving someone the finger.
Yeah.
In my generation, in my era, when you said F you to somebody, you better get ready.
You better mean it.
You better mean it and get your hands up.
Yeah.
Because that was a personal affront. You said that to somebody, get ready. Because he's coming at you. If he says it to you, you get your hands up and Because that's what, now it's like, oh, F you, like, and you're not going to do anything. What are you going to do? When I come from and where I come from, those are fighting words. And same with giving someone the finger.
Yeah.
When I come from, you don't do that unless you
God.
better be ready. And now people can drive away and laugh, and they can do these gestures and these things and think nothing of it.
You mentioned the finger. Remember I called you that night? I was furious.
Oh,
my
yes.
God, furious.
Yeah.
So I get to my condo, and you know you have your reserved parking, right? And it's 10 o'clock at night. We just finished filming, and I'm tired. You know, I'm driving from West Palm all the way to Fort Lauderdale. So I'm tired, and there's someone in my parking spot, and I hate this. I hate it because there's guest parking spot, and there's even a little walkway area where you have those cross things where you can just park for a second. My worry was, what if it's someone on the other side of the building who just parked here? How am I going to get this person to move out of my spot? So I beep the horn to get whoever's attention, and this girl comes running down the steps, and she doesn't even want to look in the car. She's young, about 19, 20 or so, and she doesn't even look at me, but she gets in the car, rolls her window down, and sticks her middle finger up. And I love when you said, when, because that is the key. It's the time frame that we come from, where you stick your middle finger up, you better have the hands to match you gotta have the hands to match that mouth. Mm-hmm. And she goes, F you, and she hits the gas and goes. And I am like, and I'm like, I'm ready tonight. I'm unhinged tonight. I'm going out. So now I'm racing behind her because I want to get her license plate. Because if she's a delivery girl, if she's Uber or Lyft, I want to get her license plate. And I kind of chase her down. And now as she sees me behind her, now she's all afraid. And then we get into this exchange. And I had to realize, okay, Shera, back down. It's the time frame I come from. We never did that. I never remember anyone that I knew put a middle finger up or said F you to an adult or anything. All she had to do was do the hands, I'm sorry, I'll move. But you want to put your middle finger and F and drive off? That's going to make anyone nuts. And I don't think children who see these things and use these profanities, they don't actually know what that means.
That's right.
And to whom you are speaking to from the time frame that you are speaking to. And there are certain languages, FUs and middle fingers that we use. It speaks a symbol to someone who grew up in that era and knows exactly what that is supposed to mean and how you're supposed to use it. And the respect in that is to just, I don't know you. Why am I going to say F you to you? Give me the respect to just, you don't have to go nuts, but the FUs and the middle fingers, it's getting out of hand. And respect on a whole is just gone down the toilet.
Yeah. Again, and what happened to the village?
Well, I really think that somewhere along the lines, someone of high stature, a manager, a teacher, a cop, or someone took advantage of the privilege to be able to discipline your child or, reprimand your child. And I think maybe that's why they got rid of this whole village raises a child thing, because you're giving consent to whoever it is to put your hand on that child. And like you said before, your dad or your mom would say, hey, if you see Bill doing something, pop him, not beat him. Yeah. You know what I mean? And maybe somewhere along the lines, it went from a little pop to a full-on beat down, or taking advantage of a child in maybe a sexual way or something. So I can see maybe why the village had to stop helping raise a child, because someone overstepped some kind of boundary or something.
Well, maybe like you said, it was all three: the police, the teachers, and the priest.
Yeah.
And that's where, we probably had to rein that back in, because irresponsible people were taking that authority of control too far, like the police and other people of authority. Yes, I think so. So now, but then it becomes, if you don't have those trusted individuals and responsible individuals in power, it's a free-for-all.
Yeah.
It's a free-for-all. So
Yeah.
then, back to what you said earlier, it's up to the home, it's up to the parents. And you know what? They're watching you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can tell a kid anything, but they see you lash out and give someone the finger on the highway. Well, Dad talks a good game, but I just saw my dad in action. He has to practice what he preaches. So we've got to be consistent with our teachings with our children. And you're right, it starts in the home.
Yeah.
It really does. And we too also, as parents, as best we can control who our children hang out with and what they do. Check out their friends. See what they're on. Have Tommy come over. I want to meet him. You know, the beautiful part of what you said and the takeaway for me from today's discussion is about respect is how you govern yourself.
Yeah.
How you, and you just showed me a beautiful illustration. If I govern myself a certain way, I'm not going to have enemies. I'm not going to have arguments. I'm not going to have hard feelings. I just need to govern myself a certain way and make my decisions for myself as to how I choose to treat that person without any, and no muss, no fuss. That's how you govern yourself.
Going back to that class, maybe what you could have done was you notice him to the side and he's doing his crossword puzzle, and you finish your lesson, you talk to those who come up to you who need the help, and then afterwards, before he leaves, hey, can I talk to you for a second? And you talk to him. Did you get the lesson? Did you understand what I said? Did you hear me? And then you'll get his perspective. Well, yeah, I heard everything you said. I like when you said this about that, and oh, he's listening. And then you'll realize, I was kind of getting a little bit upset with him for not paying attention, but he was. And maybe just controlling yourself and finding a simpler way to just reach that child, it would help you also see from his perspective why he's
right.
Maybe it's a learning disability, or maybe it's something. And sometimes because we're so wrapped up in ourselves, not that you were, but sometimes because we think they're disrespectful and they're not listening. But maybe that's just how he learns.
But you just made me think of something, and gotta say it, guys. Forgive me, but I made it about me. And it wasn't. I made it about me, and that was a mistake. And calling him out like that, well, lesson learned. It's something I won't do again, because that is not beneficial in any way. I could do it, like you said, I could do it in another way where he doesn't lose face, and maybe that's why he got so abrupt with me. That's why he got so disrespectful, because he felt, for whatever, he felt I disrespected him because I called him out in front of everyone. I singled him out. So that was the destructive part of what I did. And again, I took it as a personal insult, and I made it about me. And really the lesson for me here is, don't make it about yourself. Wait till it's all over and then have a talk with him and just get on his level and find out. And then I gain his respect.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and then you'll decide based on his response or his answer whether you should ignore him or not. And ignore is really the wrong word. Mm-hmm. We don't want to ignore children, and we don't.
But just abide what they're doing.
Yeah, don't let it bother you. Because my mom, she used to say, whenever we didn't want to do work or we didn't want to finish anything, she would say, "Listen, I lived my life. I've graduated school. I went through that already. That's up to you. So if you don't want to do it, you don't want to. I've already done it." And it just made us work harder. For some reason, it made us work harder to do these and achieve these things, because she didn't ignore us, but she didn't put the pressure like, you need to and you have to. Hey, do you want to graduate? You want to have a good job? You want to live a great life? You got to do this. I can't do it for you. So we got to kind of look at it like that and respond to it in that way, and just say, hey, it's not about me. Because most of the time, 9 times out of 10, it's really not about you. Mm-hmm. It's about the other person, what they've been going through. Maybe he got up this morning and, maybe his dad's not ever there. Maybe his mom works all the time and he got up, and he's by himself. He goes to school by himself. He comes home by himself, and it just makes him angry. It takes that anger out on you because you triggered him somehow, Sure. So that's a great takeaway, to just govern yourself. Worry about you and how you respond to whatever situation it is, and it's all about how the person reacts. Let them react to whatever it is, but you control and compose yourself. Please stay uncommon with us. And don't forget to check out next week's episode. And please also like, comment, and subscribe. And we will catch you guys next week. Bye.
So long.